Well, hello everybody. It's Matt Baum. Thank you so much to everyone who sent me questions to answer for this Q&A video. That's what this is. This is a Q&A video. You've sent me questions, I'm going to answer them, and I'm joined by the lovely and talented disembodied voice of James.
Hello everybody. Thank you so much for sending in your questions. Matthew's looked at them and I have looked at them, and I have put them into some sort of order. Please forgive us if I don't ask every single question. Some of them fall into the same category. For instance, we have many people interested in whether or not Matthew has seen Heated Rivalry and his thoughts, so I'm probably going to ask questions like that just once, if that's okay with you. Is that okay with you, Matthew?
That's okay with me.
Very well. So without further ado, I shall begin with this question. Heated Rivalry. The show Heated Rivalry is wrapping up Season 1 on Boxing Day and has been renewed for Season 2. Would you ever consider doing a video on why it's been so successful? Love your videos. Happy holidays and Happy New Year.
Yes. So we got so many questions about Heated Rivalry. That does not surprise me because it is a sexy show. So we have, James and I have watched one episode so far, and I would like to continue on with the series. I would love to do a video about Heated Rivalry, especially as it relates to other shows historically, like how it kind of grows out of all of this other media that has come in the decades before. So Heated Rivalry is certainly on the list, especially for no other reason than I want to see how many more butts we get to see.
What are your thoughts on gay romance novels in general, Matthew, with regard to Heated Rivalry and the ongoing discussion about who those stories are marketed to and which kinds of gay relationships they tend to center?
Yeah, that's a good question. For one thing, I'm in favor of gay romance. Look, I think that it's great that it's out there. I think it's great that there are stories that are capturing the mainstream and making large audiences excited about queer romance. And I think that gives cover for stories that are maybe about more marginalized queer identities and more marginalized queer groups. Obviously, Heated Rivalry is about these two very beautifully, marketably beautiful gay cis men, and that is often where the attention is on in mainstream media. However, audiences discovering that and being like, ooh, I like this. What else is out there? I think that opens the door to other creators, other people who want to tell romance stories, putting their stuff out into the world as well, and hopefully finding more of an audience, because more of an audience has been made aware that this exists. Are
there any queer releases of the last year that you would recommend?
So I'm actually often very slow about consuming stuff that is happening like in the moment. Like I always say, I'm still catching up on Ally McBeal at this point. However, I recently watched Saltburn. I know I'm a little late on that as well, but James and I just watched Saltburn and caught up on that. And I got to say, like, we were watching it with the same look of fascination that we had the first time we saw Cats 2019. It is a fascinating movie that swerves in a lot of directions. Now, I wouldn't say, like, this is a 5-star, I recommend it highly, I think this is a great piece of work, but I think it is a piece of work that I can think about endlessly because of its many choices and surprises. So that's one that I recommend looking at simply to surprise yourself. Also, really enjoyed Wicked, and I don't want to spoil too much if you haven't seen the first or the second because they're fairly recent, but Wicked for Good, I had a lovely time watching. And once again, kind of like Saltburn, here's my hot take, that Wicked for Good is like Saltburn in that I can think about its choices endlessly, choices that I would not have made, choices that I think are a little strange, and the message that I think it's sending, whether intentionally or not. I think Wicked has some really interesting ideas about what happens to people who are not in power when a powerful group wants to focus hostility on them. And I don't love everything that Wicked for Good had to say about that. But I'm really interested in thinking about it. And often when I watch something, I'm like, I liked most of that, but also I have disagreements. Part of the fun, I think, is thinking like, what would I do different if I was in charge of this thing? So there are things that I would do different with Wicked for Good. Number one, I would have the animals be people in just animal costumes instead of these, Garfield-esque CG creatures that just, I think a human in a costume for me is always like 95% of the time going to be more exciting. So anyway, that's where I'd start.
Oh, whoa. What is a good piece of media to watch on transgender topics?
Yes, thank you for this question. The first thing I would recommend is Disclosure, which is a documentary from a couple of years ago that does a really good job of diving into the way that media has handled trans issues, for decades. It's sort of the celluloid closet, sort of trans, because I think that's an area where celluloid closet doesn't really, because it's from a different celluloid closet made many decades ago, and Disclosure made very recently. I think it does a better job of speaking to a contemporary audience. I learned a lot from that documentary, and I think you will too. So I recommend Disclosure. And also, I recommend Media Processing, which is the YouTube channel that is run by my good friend and collaborator, Emma. Emma edits my videos. She's been doing a great job editing my videos for most of, I think, 2025. I think most of 2025. And so anyway, I got started watching Emma's videos maybe like a year or two ago. She has a great one on Mamma Mia. She has some great videos on Barbie. And, we just started talking about the work that we do because we're both in sort of a media criticism and media analysis and media appreciation space. So if you like what I do, I think you will like Media Processing, Emma's channel.
What queer icon would you like to see receive the biopic treatment, and who should play them?
I think this is a question that I'm going to be pondering for the rest of my life, honestly. But I'm going to be thinking about this a lot, because I'm going to think of people in the next hour and days and weeks that I'm like, oh, I should have mentioned them. The first one that comes to mind, Mae West. I would love to see a biopic on Mae West. She included queer people in her plays before she was a movie star, when she was just a playwright. She was putting gay stuff into on stage in the 1920s, and I think that's just fabulous. Who would play her? The first person I thought of, Cola Scola. I don't know if that's the right choice, but I would love to see Cola Scola's take on Mae West. I would also love to see Gladys Bentley, and maybe this has already happened. I'm not aware of a Gladys Bentley biopic, but I would love to see something about queer life in the Harlem Renaissance. I think that would be fascinating.
What's your favorite Broadway show? Mine is Chicago.
Oh my God! Don't make me choose. Don't make me choose my favorite. Favorite is such a hard thing to say because I like a lot of different shows for a lot of different reasons. I like Chess because it's got some really interesting songs. I like Chess because it's always done differently and never seems to work. And it is so interesting for me to see a show that has been evolving for decades and they still can't quite get it all the way there across the finish line. But that's not to say the kids are coming to town. Let's go see Chess, everybody. Oh gosh, what else do I like? I've never seen it, but I would love to see Raul Julia's Dracula. That would be incredible to see Raul Julia do Dracula. Oh my God. I like The Music Man. And that's very old-timey. That's very dated of me to say. But I just think The Music Man is a very fun show. And I would love to see a gender-swapped version at some point. I also, the real old, the kind of the musty, dusty, crusty ones, I have a really soft place in my heart for, like Bye Bye Birdie, which certainly was, that was not musty when it came out, obviously. But I think Bye Bye Birdie is just sweet. The Sound of Music, I think it's sweet. If we're talking more modern, and by modern I mean post-1970, yeah, Chicago Cabaret, all the Hal Prince stuff I think is really wonderful. Obviously, Stephen Sondheim, even when he misses, he hits. So, honestly, Merrily We Roll Along, I haven't seen the new Merrily yet. I'm so curious about that. I cannot wait to see it at some point. I was in Merrily in high school. I don't know why, but the science teacher, who was the advisor of the drama club, decided that after doing Oklahoma and after doing, what did we do? We did Oklahoma, we did The Sound of Music, we did a bunch of Rodgers and Hammerstein, and then he's like, all right, enough of this. We're doing a show about discontent creatives in the 1970s.
In middle age, right? Is that the one that goes backwards?
That's the one that goes backwards. It's the Pinter play. So anyway, so we did Merrily, which I think went over everybody's head, all the high school students' heads. But I had a good time being in it. I was just in the chorus.
One Broadway show that gets a revival that you get to cast. What show is it, and who's in it, living or dead?
Okay, this is maybe cheating, but I would love to see a revival of the Ziegfeld Follies. I want to see the Tableaux Vivants. I just want to, and these are not shows. This is from the 19aughts.
Not Sondheim's Follies.
Not
the
Sondheim.
actual
Oh yeah,
Follies.
no, not Sondheim's Follies. I would like to see the Ziegfeld Follies, which it's the thing that they're kind of riffing on in the producers when just people come out in hats Like that was the show. Like get a load of these hats, and it's just people standing around looking beautiful. Like something about that I think would be a lot of fun to see a modern take on that.
You watch a lot of media through a historian's lens, so I can see you getting tired of some of the media you analyze. What are some shows or movies that never get old for you?
Oh, wow. The first thing I can think of is any Miyazaki film. I don't know about any, but there's like the Miyazaki greats. Like I don't think Totoro will ever get old for me. I don't think Castle in the Sky will ever get old for me. I think maybe, what's the one about the fish?
Ponyo.
I think Ponyo I may get my fill of, but that's so the really good Miyazaki's, the movie Airplane, which I think I watched that just the right time. I was like 13 when I saw that the first time, and it's just like baked into my mind as a movie that I can just watch and watch and watch and watch.
Currently, what is your go-to comfort show?
My go-to comfort show. So whenever I'm traveling, what I do when I like arrive at when it's like I'm at the hotel and I can finally relax and I'm like off the plane or train or whatever it is, Frasier. I would just put on an episode of Frasier. For some reason, that's my in the hotel show. And I don't watch a lot of Frasier just in my life at home. Usually I want to see something I haven't seen before. But if it's time for a little bit of comfort and feeling like I'm in a new place, I'm feeling awkward, it's time for something familiar, Frasier. Maybe I watch it because I live in Seattle and I want to have a little piece of Seattle around me.
When you were growing up, what were the books, movies, music, etc. that you felt connected to, that upon discovering you felt like you had discovered a new part of yourself or uncovered one that was hidden? Happy holidays.
Ooh, yeah. Oh, gosh. So a couple. One, like Star Trek. I've talked a lot about how Star Trek was very important to me, the Muppets. I remember the Narnia books in particular were very exciting to me. So The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe was just always in the air around me, and I read that one a lot. But then a little bit older, I was probably around 5th or 6th grade. I was definitely in 5th grade because I remember drawing scenes from some of the books for homework. And I don't know how that satisfied the requirement of a homework thing, but it did somehow. Anyway, so The Magician's Nephew was particularly exciting to me, and The Silver Chair. Those two books. And looking back, I don't know why, at the time, I didn't know why they were resonating. I just liked them. But I think there's something about, with The Magician's Nephew, having like a scary drag queen friend, I think was what excited me about that book.
What do you think of him from the Powerpuff Girls cartoon? I know he's a bad guy, but I really enjoyed seeing such a powerful character enjoy so much his feminine side without anyone doubting his manhood. Little me saw it as, boys can wear thigh-high boots and lipsticks too. Happy holidays, love your work.
Yeah, sometimes I think people can be a little concerned about liking a queer villain. Like, we just watched The Talented Mr. Ripley, which I hadn't seen in many years, and I just watched that again. And I think sometimes it can feel like, ooh, but that's a bad gay, and that's like they reflect badly on us, or not even a gay. They're just doing gender differently, and they're also evil, so is it okay? It's okay. It's okay to like bad gays. It's okay to be a fan of a villain. Now, obviously, you're not saying like, and therefore I believe that I should do villainy. I should actually, take over the city. No, but watching. So here's the thing: is like the villains are the ones. I've talked about this a lot, especially in my Disney video. But when you have a villain, often they're the one who is fighting against the status quo. And of course, queer people like that. Of course, queer people, that resonates. And we're like, oh yeah, that person doesn't want things to go back to the way they were. They want to change everything. They want to tear it all down. And I think that's a really fun fantasy. And so if him from Powerpuff Girls is the one who's like, yeah, that's my aesthetic, then yeah, absolutely, go for it.
What's your favorite queer representation in television?
This is another tough one. Don't make me choose. Oh, I think Marty and Daryl from Barney Miller are a lot of fun. One of the reasons I like them so much is because they are running circles around the straits. Like, they always get the best lines, the best jokes. They're always the funniest. They're sympathetic. They come out on top usually. And so and also because that was such a new thing on television. It was so seldom that you could see a queer character, an openly, unambiguously queer character doing that. I mean, you go back just a couple years and you got Paul Lynde and on Bewitched and on the Paul Lynde Show, who is fun too. But for Marty and Daryl on Barney Miller to be like, hello, the gays have arrived, that is so exciting to me. And to see it happening like that early in television, and to know behind the scenes that Danny Arnold, who was running the show, that Danny Arnold was fighting to have characters and taking financial, like spending his own money, mortgaging his house to pay for those episodes because he believed in them. I really, really deeply appreciate those characters.
What is the most offensive toward queer people movie or TV show you've ever seen?
Oh, this is great. So here's the thing is like what I think is offensive is when the queers aren't there. Like the erasure I think is more offensive to me than any kind of bad representation. Like, Harvey Fierstein says in Celluloid Closet, representation at any cost. The bad stuff is better than none. So, anything where we're not there is annoying to me. That having been said, I think this question is really about like what's the stuff that like they really got wrong, the stuff that's fun. There's an episode of I think it's Alfred Hitchcock Presents. It might be the Alfred Hitchcock Hour, but there's an episode with like a killer a killer cross-dressing or maybe transgender or who knows nurse that like just completely misunderstands everything. So there's an Alfred Hitchcock show like deranged nurse that is just so off the mark. It's hysterical. And there's also, I don't know if I call it offensive exactly, but there's an episode of some legal drama, and I can't remember the name, where Richard Dreyfuss plays a young gay man. And I wouldn't say it's offensive. It's not like, oh, how dare they? But it's just so fumbling and clueless that I think it's actually quite funny and fun to watch.
What was the medical drama with the lesbian?
Oh, yes, the young ones, the new doctors, or the new doctors, the young ones, or something like that. Yes. Oh God, it's got one of the actors from the show Brothers. This is the like late 70s, I want to say. So there's a couple really good ones. One, oh my God. So there's the one where this doctor is in love with a nurse and he confesses his feelings to her and she's like, oh, but I'm a lesbian. And he's like, disgusted, first of all. He's disgusted that there's a nurse. He's disgusted that he was attracted to a lesbian. And then he makes it his mission to cure or fix her or like win her back from this like awful lesbian situation she's found herself in. And so it's awful. It is just awful. And then there's another one that I just think is hysterical. It's got Lois Nettleton, who plays Jean. She's on The Golden Girls. She's Dorothy's lesbian friend like 10 years later. But 10 years before she was Jean the lesbian on The Golden Girls, she's playing a lesbian psychiatrist on this medical show, which I think is still the New Doctors or the Young Doctors or something like that. And she's trying to like defend lesbianism, which is a ridiculous position to be in. But she's trying to defend it to somebody. And she has some line where she says like, yes, that's right, I'm a lesbian. And no, we're not all man-hating harridans. All right, some of us are, but that's their problem. It's such a funny, like, well, to be fair. Anyway, so I think those are some of the fun ones.
Which pieces of media, film, TV, music, books, have had the most positive, inspiring, and joyful effects on you over the years?
I think Kids in the Hall, Buddy's character, the Buddy character on Kids in the Hall, seeing somebody who was super queenie and queer and swishy, and also that was a source of power for them, was so exciting for me. Like, I got it at just the right moment in high school when I was figuring out what gay meant, and seeing that was a flavor that was accessible to me, and I didn't have to apologize for it. And now, obviously, I was about to say I'm nobody, but here I am, like, sitting like I'm, in almost the same pose, like I'm about to deliver a humorous monologue. So maybe there's a bit of Buddy. There's a bit more of Buddy to me than than I want to admit.
Can you name someone you found unexpectedly inspiring this year and describe why?
Okay, so I've never been like a huge Ariana Grande fan, and because she's for young people. But seeing her in Wicked has totally transformed my opinion of her in Wicked, and also like doing the promotion and the interviews and stuff around it. She's just got it. Sometimes you see a star and you're like, that person's just a star. She reminds me of Debbie Reynolds in kind of a funny way. Like, she feels like classic old Hollywood, like golden age Hollywood. She also reminds me a bit of Lucille Ball in that she really knows the business. Like, Lucille Ball famously knew so much about, like, she could just go to the gaffer and be like, oh yeah, we're going to need a number 3 gauge thing. And, like, she just knew the business and like how it worked. And listening to Ariana Grande talking about like audio engineering, she's a great singer, but she's not just a great singer. She like knows what all the buttons on the mixer does. Like, she really is an expert. So Ariana Grande. And also, like, how she was just unafraid to say in an interview, like, "Oh yeah, I think Linda might be a lesbian. Give her some time." And like that she would just say that, which would cause so much of a firestorm of crisis management just from anybody else or like a few years earlier. So I love that she did that. And also, I've been looking at a lot of like just travel videos recently because it's fun to look at travel videos. And there's this one channel called The Gay Guide where it is just a guy from, I want to say he's from Brazil, I think, who just travels to countries and he just goes for it. And he is just wandering through the countries and does not seem like there's much of a plan. He is just taking Europe in as it comes to him, let us say. And the sort of like, the bliss, the gay bliss of just like wandering and saying whatever comes into his mind, I think is just, there's a very infectious fun about what he's doing.
What show was the most influential of accepting gay people in the 2000s, and what is it now?
Oh boy, I gotta say, a couple. It's hard to choose, but I do think like Glee did a lot of good work. I think Modern Family did a lot of good work, just in like showing gay characters. And sometimes it was like the very special episode of the week where it's like the gay stuff. We got to talk about the gay stuff. But then a lot of times it was just like the gay is there, and so I think that is good. Will and Grace too, of course, and a lot of others. Ugly Betty. But now, like, who's doing that now? Unfortunately, because I think major media companies are kind of skittish at the moment, there's not a ton. But going back to the question that, I was getting a lot of for this Q&A, Heated Rivalry, I think that show becoming a big hit and reaching an audience beyond it's clearly a show that is resonating with people beyond just the gays. And so I think Heated Rivalry is doing a lot of good work.
When considering queer media as a whole, what unreleased content that was either cut from media or would eventually be created and published, like cutscenes and characters, or fully unreleased films, series, books, etc., have you been most intrigued by or most disappointed by their lack of inclusion?
Yeah, so, wait, give me a second, let me process that. So the thing that this makes me think of is when there's an adaptation of a work that like strips the gay out of it. In particular, I've just been thinking a lot about The Talented Mr. Ripley recently, and also Strangers on a Train and some other Patricia Highsmith novels. And when you look at like those original books, the original Talented Mr. Ripley is a very, very queer piece of media. The 99 film with Jude Law and Matt Damon is even queerer. And like what I think of when I look at that is how little queerness there could be in an adaptation like Strangers on a Train. Like it all had to be sort of like simmering and under the surface. And so, that's the stuff that intrigues me, is the stuff that like somebody could write something really queer in a novel back then and get away with it. Or Tennessee Williams, for example, like, Cat on a Hot Tin Roof is like, you just got to know the code at that point. So I'm really interested in how, it's, literally the code. There's like the gay coding, but you have to know the production code. And so I'm really interested in how creative people, or like Suddenly Last Summer, how movies had to manipulate around saying gay. So those are the ones like Tennessee Williams, Suddenly Last Summer, like Somerset Maugham work, like stuff like that, Patricia Highsmith novels, that stuff that gets adapted into a movie, and they have the challenge of like, well, we can't say that. Or, like, what's the one, when you speak of this and you will be kind, what's that, Tea and Sympathy? Like, stuff like that.
Has there been a depiction of same-sex attraction or romance that made you swoon? For me, it was Brideshead Revisited.
So there's a couple. I think the end of Morris, the Merchant Ivory version of Morris, which I think it's Hugh Grant and somebody else, I think. So I think that has a really sweet, tender conclusion that I don't want to spoil for anybody. Call Me By Your Name recently made me swoon in an interesting way. There's also a scene in My Beautiful Laundrette, and it is like a fraction of a second. But so not to spoil too much about this movie, but it's about two men from very different backgrounds who realize that they want to share more. They want to share each other's time. And even like under the scrutiny, it's from the 80s, it's like Thatcher England. There's so much scrutiny on both of them. They have to be very careful. But there's a moment where one of them has a very sly, slick move of doing something very sexy to the other in plain view of other people and not getting caught. And it is so risky and sexually thrilling. I think about that all the time, and it makes me swoon like decades later.
What upcoming pieces of queer media are you looking forward to seeing, reading, etc.?
Yes. So there's a movie coming out in 2026. It's already done the festivals, Pillion. All I know about it is that it was very well reviewed. It is about another like star-crossed lovers kind of thing, where like two men from very different backgrounds find something in common, and their relationship develops in a way that neither of them expects or thinks that they want, but maybe they do. So and there's like a big BDSM element to this movie, which I was telling a friend about this, and he was like, "Oh no, I don't want straight people to know about that kind of stuff. I don't want my like straight friends to ask me like, what's a dom and what's a sub?" He's like, it's upsetting enough that they know what twinks are. So I'm excited to see what Pillion does when it comes out, because it did festival circuit, and now it's coming out in early February of this year. So Pillion.
Is that the answer to the question, what queer media are you most looking forward to in 2026?
I don't know about most looking forward to. That's the one that's on my radar right now. That's the one that I'm thinking a lot about. So I'm sure there's other stuff that'll be like, ooh, I can't wait. But that's the one that Pillion is what I'm thinking about right now.
What are your predictions for queer media in the coming year? How might the ongoing media conglomerate mergers, the growing use and enforcement of AI, and the current administration's escalating attacks on free speech, such as Jimmy Kimmel, 60 Minutes, and the CCOT report, etc., affect queer visibility, storytelling, and opportunities?
Boy, oh boy, that is a huge question. And I think the answer to that is in the holiday video that I just did when I asked Ben de la Creme about what's the state of queer media. Again, like when I asked Ben about that, he was like, oh boy, that's a huge question. So the short version, the short answer is live events, live theater, live performance, live, live, live. I think that is going to be huge, super important, more important than it ever has been. Maybe not ever, but extremely important. I went to a live show here in Seattle just the other day, Scott Shoemaker's War on Christmas, and it feels so good to be just, to use this term that gets overused, in community, but it feels so good to be in a crowd of queer people laughing in the same direction at the same references and jokes and silly business, and feeling like here we all are, seeing each other, like physically seeing like we are all together. That is priceless, and no number of Zaslavs can take that away from us.
Did you enjoy Ryan Murphy's Hollywood series?
I have not seen the Ryan Murphy Hollywood series, in part because I have this problem because of the work that I do, where sometimes I just get so taken out of it by historical fact checking. So, and I know there's going to be a lot, because the whole point of that series is to be ahistorical. But even watching something like Fellow Travelers, which I thought was pretty good with beyond pretty good. I thought it was great with the history. There's still things that I was like, well, it wouldn't be like that. That person wouldn't be there. The room wouldn't be that big, and these people wouldn't have met each other. So it is hard for me to look at history, dramatized history, without being a little bit of a little bit of a wet blanket about it sometimes. Especially because it's like imagining Ryan Murphy's Hollywood series is imagining this world that never existed. I don't know. Look, here's the thing: is I can enjoy a fantasy. I can enjoy a Game of Thrones, and there's dragons. So, like, if I can enjoy a dragon, why can't I enjoy Rock Hudson being openly gay? So, I don't know. I've avoided it, but I'm sure it will come to me at some point.
Your videos are so informative and fantastic to watch. I have a question. Have you heard any songs by Erasure? I think you'd be especially interested in the song called Hideaway.
So, I am certain that I have heard songs by Erasure, but I'm so bad about pop music. Like, it is hard for James. You probably know if I've heard a song by Erasure.
Robot Unicorn Attack.
Robot Unicorn Attack. They're going to get back to business.
That's the one.
No, what is that?
It was an iPhone game where a unicorn runs forward and you touch the screen and the unicorn will jump. Yeah, give it to us.
What is it? Hey, girls. Off we go, we're going into the sky. Hey girls, let's get let's get the show turned up to the pie. No, wait, it's something like that, right?
You're strangely close in some ways.
Yeah, no. I remember the vibe of the unicorn game. Ooh, here we are. We're going up and up and up and a little bit down and then up again. Up again. It's like the 80s song.
Always
and forever we're going around. No. We're gonna be in here and then we're going out to coffee.
Give it to me from the beginning.
Always I'm gonna be with you. We're gonna be together when we go outside. Outside is where the sun is too bright, so let's go back inside tonight.
That's it.
Okay. Yeah, no, yes. So yeah, I'm a big fan.
Do you listen to intros or soundtracks of movies and shows? If so, which ones?
Oh my God. I am obsessed with intro themes, like the opening song of the show. I love a show that's so bizarre it has to explain and make excuses for itself in its opening song. Like it has to write a song being like, no, like don't go anywhere. I promise this will all make sense. I love a show that does that. Like My Mother the Car is probably one of my favorite examples of like it's a theme song that's like, all right, folks, we got a premise. Let me walk you through the premise. So I love My Mother.
Can
the
you
Car.
sing the premise?
Oh yeah. But everybody knows in a second life we all come back sooner or later as anything from a grizzly bear to a man-eating alligator. And you may think my story is more fiction than it's fact, but believe it or not, my mother dear decided she'd come back as a car. She's my very own guiding star, a 1928 Porter. That's my mother dear. She helps me through everything I do, and I'm so glad she's here. My mother the car. So that's My Mother the Car. I love it so much. It was pitched as a joke, and then the network took it seriously, and they're like, "Yeah, make that." And and everybody's like, "Oh fuck, we got to make this now." So My Mother the Car, and also Down to Earth. I love Down to Earth. It's about a flapper in the 1920s who gets hit and killed by a trolley, and she goes to heaven for 50 years and can't earn her wings until she goes back down and helps out a family in need. And so it's this 1920s flapper angel who goes down to help a family in the 1980s, and wacky hijinks ensue because she's a wacky 20s girl in the 80s. And it stars Dick Sargent, the second dad from Bewitched, and Rip Taylor with the confetti. And there's someone else. Oh, one of the Real Housewives is on it, but she's a teenager because it's the 1980s. So whenever I see it, I'm like, wow, Dick Sargent. And whenever anybody else sees it, they're like, the Real Housewife? So anyway, I love Down to Earth.
What's your desert island album?
You know, I tend to like listen to something like on repeat until just like one thing forever, and then I get sick of it and I never listen to it again. So for a long time, it was Belle and Sebastian, Boy with the Arab Strap. Right now, I'm listening to this band called Gunship that has, I really like beep boop music, like that kind of like fades into the background and gives my brain something to chew on while I'm thinking about something else. So I like Gunship because it is sort of I don't know, it's hard, it's slippery music that doesn't distract too much while I'm doing something else.
What's your desert island dessert?
Oh, I love a Boston cream donut. I will never have enough Boston cream donuts.
Is there a show or movie you're interested in talking about but can't find anything gay about?
Fraggle Rock. There's probably something gay I could talk about. There's one episode with a, and again, not too many spoilers. Well, who cares? It's Fraggle Rock. I think it's okay for me to spoil it. There's an episode of Fraggle Rock where Wembley makes a friend. That friend dies, and Wembley has to deal with death. And Richard Hunt plays the character who dies, and I find it very, very, very moving. So that's as gay as it gets because Richard Hunt was a gay performer. I would love to talk about Fraggle Rock more because that is a show that really informed my sense of humanity and what's right and wrong as a kid. It's not a super gay show is the thing. So if I could find a way in to talk about that, I would.
Is there anybody you've wanted to do a video on but couldn't get an interview or the info that you needed?
Yeah, so Cary Grant. There's a lot of material out there floating around about how Cary Grant was a gay man and he was in a relationship with Ori Kelly, and there's an interview with Betty White where she accidentally says that he was gay, and then she's like, "Oh, I don't know about that. He just didn't sleep with me." So I would love to come across some material where we could talk about Cary Grant and Randolph Scott and like what a cute couple they were. It's the actual evidence just isn't there.
Hi, Matt. If you could do a large, comprehensive project on any queer piece of media or history that you are deeply passionate about, what would it be and why?
Yeah, so I think this question is basically like if I was just going to spend a year on something, like if I was going to go like as deep as you could possibly go, I think surprisingly one of the places I would go is, this isn't exactly a piece of media, but like mid-century drag shows, like the Black Cat and Jose Sarria, and the sort of the emergence of the imperial court, and like underground drag performances of the 1950s, 60s, 70s, I think is such a fascinating thing because it's so secret and you have to like know like the right place to go and you got to knock on the right door and say the password and but like the lives of freedom that some people were able to live at that time by really embodying their the performance of drag, I think is really interesting. And I don't know if I'd want to spend like a year or something, but I would love to go like way deeper on all that stuff.
Would you be interested in covering more queer history surrounding animation and children's media, such as important queer features, but also just representation and its evolution, especially given how fraught and divisive including such representation for young queer people can still be today?
Yes. So I did some work with this great organization called Queer Vox. It's run by the wonderful JP Karliak and some other folks, and it's kind of a support and professional organization for queer voice actors. So I did some work for them, just writing up and shining a spotlight on queer voice actors, people working in animation and games primarily. And so I would love to spend more time with that, especially in anime, especially in the 80s. That was a little bit further ahead than we were in the U.S. On putting queer stuff in anime. You can certainly see it in like Sailor Moon, how that was straightened out initially when it was brought to the U.S. And in particular, the wonderful Hamish Steele and the series Dead End, or Dead Endia, having a really difficult time with people who are acting in bad faith, who are just like, I want to attack something, and so I'm going to go after this thing because I think it's an easy target. Because that show is so inclusive and so well done, and it's very frustrating that it gives the bad guys an excuse. It creates a target when they can just say, "Oh, but kids, this is for kids. Why are these people going after kids?" It's very tiresome and very annoying that happens, and that's why we got to stand up for inclusive media for young people. But also, like going way back to stuff like, just the drag of Bugs Bunny, or a piece of media like The Reluctant Dragon, which is this Disney film that somehow, like this very queer dragon character squeaked through. So, I would love to spend more time with that and compare it to how, media's always had this like squeamishness about like, ooh, can we say this because kids are going to be watching and maybe parents won't like if kids know that gay people exist. So, and then, people like Rebecca Sugar, who are, do a great job of saying, no, we're going to put queer characters or like queer allegory into this work that is going to be seen by children because there are queer children and there are children who have queer parents, and so they deserve something too. So anyway, yes.
I'm sorry if I haven't seen it, but have you done something on lesbian shows, and if not, are you planning to? For example, something on The L Word or Orange is the New Black. Do you think it's appropriate to discuss as a gay man, or should we leave the analysis to other queer folk?
Yeah, so it's correct that I have not done a ton of stuff on lesbian representation, in part because I just don't know it as well. And I think there's something that I think could come off wrong about like, hello, I'm a man. Let me tell you about women as a gay man. I'm going to explain lesbians to themselves. So that having been said, I think it's fine to talk about. So yeah, there may be more lesbians in the future.
Would you consider a video on Liberace?
So yes, I would love to do a video on Liberace. I think he's so much fun. When you see him on stage, it is just a hoot. This is somebody who's living his best life and having a great time. I love him on The Muppet Show when he's doing this weird salute to birds for some reason. It's so much fun. Unfortunately, when you dig into a lot of Liberace's like actual life and what was going on and how strongly he had to fight against accusations and be in the closet and all that stuff, or impersonate a heterosexual to the extent that he was able, sometimes it can be a bit of a bummer to talk about him. And so just if I'm going to talk about Liberace, I want to find a way to make it relevant to today. And I don't want to just end on like, isn't it sad what happened with Liberace? I want to find a way to talk about him that isn't too depressing.
When is Stephen Sondheim coming?
Oh, that is a question for the ages. Stephen Sondheim is coming. Look, there are some subjects that are so vast and broad that I don't know how to like approach it. Stephen Sondheim is one of the big ones. I've got like lots of research, lots of books, and lots of appreciation for the topic. So I don't even know where to begin. But I promise you, Stephen Sondheim is in the top zone of the things that I am working on, along with several other things, but he's not slipping off the list.
What do you currently think of the value in calling out queer baiting?
So I mean, for one thing, I do not spend a lot of time thinking about queer baiting. Like I know there's this, and to define it, there's this phenomenon sometimes where a show will feel like, or a piece of media, like will set the expectation there's going to be something really exciting and queer, and then it doesn't happen, and that's disappointing. And when that happens, personally, I just tend to move on and to look for the stuff that I do like. I think what's even better than being disappointed and calling something out and complaining. And I think that there is certainly value in discussing that stuff. But what's even better is making your own and, setting the example and being like, well, this is what I want to see. And I'm going to write it. Even if it's on like, Archive of Our Own or wherever you put it on Tumblr, who cares? Making stuff is, I think, at the end of the day, so much better than complaining about what's not getting made.
Will you devote episodes to the queer horror genre? It has become more mainstream these past few years.
Yeah, maybe. Here's the problem with horror for me. I get scared. So I have avoided horror for most of my life. That having been said, I've recently been giving it more of a try. What did we just watch, James? That we watched a horror thing that I actually liked.
Basket Case?
Yes, that wasn't what I was thinking of, but yes, we just watched Basket Case, which I think there's an opportunity to compare that film to Talented Mr. Ripley, and I don't know if that's the tack I'm going to take when I do a video about it, but maybe. Anyway, yes, more queer horror. I think I'm going to bite the bullet and try to be brave.
Will we eventually see a video about Brothers? My family watched it together when I was a kid, and I credit both my parents and that show for helping me accept LGBTQ folks.
Yeah, I will have a video for Brothers eventually. It's one of those things that, like, there's a lot to watch, a lot to take in. Because it ran for, like, years? I think it, 6 or 7 years. So, I want to be comprehensive and know what the show is. So at some point, I will have a show about this really, truly groundbreaking, I think it was the first... Maybe not the first. Maybe it was the first successful cable sitcom. So it was a sitcom on cable about a gay man and his brothers who are learning to live with their gay brother. And it's got a character that I really love, this Donald character, who's one of those sissies who's running circles around the straits. So there's a lot to love about this show. And unfortunately, it just kind of disappeared into the abyss, and people don't remember it as much as I think they should.
Have you ever seen 6 Feet Under from HBO?
Can you believe that's one that I missed? Because when 6 Feet Under was on, I was in college. We didn't have HBO there, and it just, the timing was off. And so I know at some point I got to go back and watch 6 Feet Under. It'll happen.
What is your opinion on Three's Company, considering the subject matter?
Oh, boy. So here's what I think about Three's Company. One, I think it is very nice that there was a show on television that was discussing the existence of gays. Also, I think there's some very fun things about the show, but also I think it is not always... I think it's a show that if you're watching it as an adult versus watching it when you're young, it doesn't hit quite as well. It's not... Sorry to say, it just doesn't make me laugh. Three's Company, I don't think it's as funny as I want a sitcom to be. So, but I don't think it's some people want to be like, oh, it's problematic, and I don't care. Maybe it's problematic, but I don't think it's a crime, the way that they're talking, to have a gay-ish character, a character who's supposedly gay.
How about covering the Law and Order episode Manhood? It's perfect for your show.
Yeah, so that's another one that'll probably it's on the list at some point. I'll look at it more closely. Part of my process for choosing what I'm going to talk about is, is there something timely about this? So I think I would have to look at how does this, what does this have to say to us today versus when it was originally made?
Matt, you are absolutely one of my favorite media essayist YouTubers. Thank you for your work. I would love to see a video about the history of LGBTQ plus media curatorship, such as the great Castro Theater in San Francisco being a landmark for bringing back old films in a grand setting.
Yeah, boy, oh boy, those institutions are getting more and more and more important. I know the Castro especially has faced a lot of economic pressure, especially when it comes to the ownership maybe not being on the same page as the community with the mission of the institution. So I don't know if curatorship is exactly the right word, but community leadership for sure. Having somebody, and I think I'm very happy that I'm able to do this, and there's a lot of people who are doing this online. And I think people doing it physically, in places where it's everybody come watch this show, watch this movie, discover something or revisit a classic. I would love, for example, back in the 80s, when the Golden Girls was airing, there would just be Golden Girls night at the bar. The gay bar would on whatever it was it Thursday or Saturday? Whenever it was on, everything would stop at the gay bar for all the gays to watch the Golden Girls. And it was fun to watch a sitcom, but it was also fun to be around other people watching something that you all like. I want that to come back. I want gay bars to start having Golden Girls nights again.
Please, please, please try and do an episode about doing time on Maple Drive. Hope you can. Love your content. Have learned so much and introduce your channel to all the gay allies I can.
That's a fun idea. So that's the one, I believe, that has Jim Carrey as not playing a gay man, but the brother, I think, of a gay man, if I'm remembering correctly. So maybe that's another one where like it's an obscure, that's a deep cut. And that's not to say that I can't do it. But, sometimes when it's a show like, if I'm talking about the X-Men, people have heard of that and they're going to be like, oh yeah, I'm curious. But when it's something obscure, like doing time on Maple Drive or this like made for TV movie from the 80s called What If I'm Gay? Something like that, I got to do a little extra work to make it apparent to the audience why they should care. So it's a lot easier to do that when it's something you've heard of than something that's new. That's, again, not to say it can't be done, but there's an additional challenge there. I guess Jim Carrey is the thing that you've heard of.
The Grinch.
The Grinch.
What did you think of Craig Russell's movie Outrageous? Could you imagine being around in the 70s and seeing him on afternoon talk shows in Canada being interviewed nonchalantly about being an entertainer, actor, impressionist at the time when that was very taboo? I was a kid then, and I knew I was witnessing something great.
Gosh, there was this period in the 1970s when it was so trendy. Like, being able to talk about anything homosexual, anything queer, was so new and daring and bold and avant-garde. And so it was just, like, by your association with queerness, there was, like, a coolness that was conveyed upon you. And, I certainly don't think I want to go back to that necessarily, because the reason for that is that it was so taboo and difficult and impossible to survive just a decade earlier. So certainly don't want to go back to the reason for that. But I don't know. I think there's something very fun about, like, for example, watching a documentary like Gay Sex in the 70s, when the door was opened and there was this like exploration of what could be possible. And, people were stuff like Wakefield Pool films, which were basically, it was gay porn, but it was trendy gay porn. And so you'd see like, the trendy thing to do was to go to a gay porn theater. And so you'd see like, there's this incredible story about Angela Lansbury being cited at a gay porn theater because it was the cool thing for people to do. And Angela Lansbury was cool. So there she was.
Who do you think was the most famous out gay actor on U.S. television? Is there someone who was always open about being gay and famous at the same time?
What TV has shifted a lot in the last, decade or two. There's Matt Bomer, for example, who is a big TV star who's just, no bones about it. He's gay. I'm thinking about like movie stars like Rupert Everett in the 90s and Alan Cumming. But going further back, then we get into like the coding and that like you can be it but don't say it kind of actors like Charles Nelson Reilly, for example. And I'm not saying like, so boo Charles Nelson Reilly for not being out, but I'm saying like, these are just actors from a different time. Was there an actor who could just be like the out gay guy? I think that's what made Scott Thompson such a revelation, that was somebody on TV doing it then in the 90s, and it still felt very fresh that you had somebody. Because before then, like, if you were the out one, nobody would want to take a risk on hiring you. So, Scott Thompson, I think, is one of the earlier ones that I can think of.
RuPaul.
Ru was definitely a boundary breaker. There's somebody who was, by sheer force of will and talent, making herself into a star. And so, again, this is why Ru was so innovative and like such a, like the coolness of a queer person just saying that they're queer. So that's another reason why Ru was so fresh and new and interesting and exciting. And even somebody like Pedro Zamora on The Real World. Like, TV had so little time. Audiences had so little time to get to know him. But somebody having the boldness to just declare themselves like that in front of millions of people, such a new phenomenon in the mid-90s. So there's like a balance for most of TV history where, for most of TV history, there's just, a queer person couldn't exist, but openly. But then you get to a point where you can be open and out like Pedro Zamora or like Scott Thompson, but you're never going to hit that level of fame. And it's only very recently that you get like, for example, a Chris Colfer or a Matt Bomer, somebody who's like open, out, and like, A-list, skip the line famous cover of magazines.
Has Justin Bailey always been out?
I think Justin Bailey's always been out. I don't think there's ever been a time it was like, Justin Bailey's coming out story. Jonathan Bailey.
Oh, Jesus, yeah.
Yeah, Jonathan Bailey.
Justin Bailey's a Metroid code.
Great. He's always been out, too.
What's your favorite gay role played by a non-gay actor, as well as a gay role played by a gay actor?
Okay, so the first one that comes to mind, gay role played by a gay actor. I'm sure I'm going to regret saying this one, but the guy in The Gay Deceivers, and I've forgotten the actor's name, but the one who famously, the clip that always goes around is him crying, "I may not know my flowers, but I know a bitch when I see one." Like, I just think he's actually very funny. Also, what's his name? Johnny from Airplane, like Steven Stucker. Like a gay character played by a gay person. Those are the characters I think are very fun. As far as a gay character played by a straight actor, my favorite, I think, one of the first ones that comes to mind is the guys in Brokeback Mountain. I think they did a really great job of just doing a love story. And also, none of it was about the media or the interview. Like, at no point were either of them being like, it was really difficult to get into the headspace of a gay. Like, there was no, I'm being so brave for doing this. They were just doing a love story. And I think Brokeback Mountain is one of the best. Oh, my gosh. Now that I'm thinking about it. So everybody in Priscilla. And also, Hollywood Montrose. I adore Meshack Taylor's Hollywood Montrose. It's so interesting that everyone that I'm naming here is very sissy. And I think that's just the characters that I like. Because there's also, John Goodman playing a gay man on the show Normal, Ohio. And I don't know, that doesn't really resonate with me in the same way as somebody who does a good job. It's very easy to do a insulting version of that. But I think when a straight actor can do a sissy character well, and it's affectionate, that's a lot of fun. And of course, the Brokeback Mountain guys, not sissies at all.
I have a theory about old sitcoms and secondary characters. Many of the confirmed bachelors and working girls would have been clocked as gay if not given a boyfriend-girlfriend for at least one episode to throw off suspicion. Am I looking for representation where there isn't any?
Oh, that's another interesting question. Yeah, and I know the kind of characters that you mean. There's, what's her name on Beverly Hillbillies? There's, Charles Nelson Riley's character on The Ghost of Mrs. Muir, Niles on Frasier, for example. So those characters who are they seem queer, but then they've been given this opposite sex. I mean, the one that has always bothered me is Data and Tasha on Next Generation. The queerest characters on the second episode, they're like, "Oh, we gotta put them together so nobody makes the mistake that thinks that they're queer." Anyway, I think, look, just say that they're queer. Just decide that they're queer. You are, as the audience, you are as qualified to decide what's gay and what isn't as the people making it. So, whether they get the same-sex romance on screen or whether they get it in your head, either way, just say they're queer.
Would you do more videos about British gay culture throughout history?
Yes. Oh my God. It is ridiculous to me that I haven't done videos on Quentin Crisp and Kenneth Williams and Stephen Fry, on, Are You Being Served? And just the dragginess of Hyacinth Bouquet. Yes. So the challenge there is even though it's not that different of a culture, it is a different culture. So again, I don't want to come in and be all right, British people, let me explain British humor to you. So there's a lot of learning that I would have to do to tackle, Are You Being Served?
Would you ever make a video about Monty Python?
Yes. So one of the things on my list is a video about Graham Chapman. And I really want to do a video about Graham Chapman.
Not really a question, but have you ever watched The Gay Rock and Roll Years? It's a show that the BBC made in the early 90s that tracks the history of gay rights, mainly in the UK.
No, I have not heard of that. Thank you for that question, making me aware of it. I'm going to go seek it out and put it on my list.
What about Sandy Toksvig?
Ooh, yeah. So there's another one. I would love to do a video about her. I love comparing QI. So British show QI. It's kind of a panel discussion show. I really am interested in comparing the Stephen Fry hosted years to the Sandy Toksvig hosted years. So yeah, at some point, I'm sure I will talk about her as well.
Queer as Folk?
Queer as Folk. Oh, yeah. That's another one that, the time is right, nostalgically, to go back and look at the British version, the U.S. version, compare them, and boy, oh boy, how audiences, gosh, because in the U.S., if you're too young to remember this, you may not, but when Queer as Folk aired in the US, it was such a thing for like gay friends to get together. For some reason, it wasn't really a bar watch show. It was a home watch show. And there would be these home watch parties. It was just like how a lot of people consumed the show was to get together with their gay friends and watch Queer as Folk. And maybe because it was sexy and people felt weird watching at a bar. I don't know. It seems like that would make it more of a bar-friendly show. Whatever. So yeah, I do want to talk about that phenomenon of like how that show actually wound up bringing people close together as friends.
It's a sin?
Ooh, have not seen that one yet. That's on the list to check out at some point.
As someone also in academia, I am really interested in how you go about research. Do you have a favorite go-to location or website where you start when working on a new subject?
Yeah. Oh, thank you for this question. And so, to be clear, like I'm not in academia. I do not work at a school. I'm not a professor, and what I'm doing is not really academic. But I do a lot of research. So there's a lot of places that I go where I think the research is fertile and fun, and there are new discoveries to be made. One of them is just purely archive.org. So if I'm looking for a person or show or subject or whatever, you can search the text of stuff. You can search like the metadata, you can search the titles, but you can also search inside the text of stuff. And sometimes you discover really unexpected stuff because archive.org has weird things digitized. Like they're obscure newsletters and strange correspondence and diaries and things like that where you're like, what is this doing here? But also, I'm so glad it is. There's some archives that you can get through your local library. There's the Gale Archives of Sexuality and Gender. There's the online, I think it's the Digital Transgender Archive. There's some really, really good archives of, like ephemera that, people's papers that they just donated. So I love searching through that stuff. Also, newspapers.com. You can just search through old newspapers, and I really go down a rabbit hole. I'll start off looking for some specific thing, and then I'll notice some funny 1960s advertisement for a hairdryer. And suddenly I forget what I'm doing there, and I'm just like looking at hairdryer commercials. So anyway, those are like those archives, and just like searching through, not really academically, but searching through and just looking for what's fun, like what makes me laugh, or what's surprising, or what's like that's weird. That's sort of where my search often begins.
I would love to know your research process and where you find all the clips and information. Everything you do is so well documented and organized.
Boy, you wouldn't say that if you saw how I do it. Honestly, one of the processes may be generous, a generous way to describe it. I'll look at the subject and be like, what makes me feel something or what makes me think something about this? Like just paying attention to what am I chewing on when I'm not watching it actively? Like that's kind of where the process starts. When it comes to like gathering things, oh boy, it is a mix. Like I'll look, is there a director's commentary that touches on this? And then can I get that just from the library? Is there a magazine that has an article about it? And can I find that magazine on eBay? That's sometimes where my research takes me.
What was the most shocking tidbit you've discovered in your research?
I don't know if this is shocking exactly, but something that always surprises and delights me is discovering like a queer thread that goes back way further than you might think. For example, gay bars, in the UK and in England in like the 1800s, they're called molly houses. And just discovering like the ways that same-sex attraction and romance, and also just fucking around, sex, the forms that kind of stuff has taken, because it's very human, right? Just how it has changed in times when we might not think about it, and how it is completely the same. And as much as like Heated Rivalry feels very fresh and new as a show, obviously, there's gay athletes who are bumping around and showing each other butts, going back centuries. So that's the stuff that I wouldn't say shocks me, but I get like a little vibration of joy when I can discover, because so often those records have been destroyed either for people's safety, they've destroyed it themselves, or by people who don't want to admit that something queer exists. So when those records have survived, that's what's shocking, when the records have survived. What's the one? There's some like Roman graffiti that says like, "Weep, women, for my penis only loves the butt of Herman," or something like that.
That's exactly it.
That's exactly it.
I would love to hear you talk about process or workflow. I can't think of another essayist on YouTube who produces so consistently in terms of quantity and quality.
I appreciate that. So it is ever shifting and ever evolving, and I'm always trying different ways to organize my thoughts and organize the videos. Usually, like big picture, the way it happens is something catches my attention, or I pull something out of like the file of like, I've always been meaning to look at this. And then James and I like mull on it and stew, and we look for like where's the interesting stuff and why should anybody care, and like why would this make somebody feel something. And then I will look for like the narrative lines and like how can I tell this as a story so it's not just like a series of Trivial Pursuit cards. And then there's like, and this is always different, gathering the media. Sometimes I have to download stuff from YouTube. Sometimes I have to go to the library and find it. Sometimes I have to track something down on a VHS tape and have it shipped to me, whatever it is. And then, we shoot everything and ingest it into the editing. And just in this last year, very fortunately, I have started working with Emma at Media Processing. And so she does like the bulk of the lifting on the edits, which I'm sure you've noticed, like the edits have improved this year. That's because that's thanks to Emma. And then a lot of the work is also thinking like, how do I explain to somebody who isn't familiar with this, like, why it's so cool, why I think it's worth their time. So that sometimes takes the form of like in the first 30 seconds of the video, like I spend a lot of time thinking about how the first 30 seconds of the video is going to make it clear why you should spend, the next 30 to 90 minutes on this thing. And also the title and the thumbnail. And also like when I put something out on social media to explain that it's coming, not even explain, but to tell people that it's coming, how do I make sure that people understand, like, I think this is really cool and this is why I think you will find it cool. So a lot of the process is just figuring out how to connect with other people over our shared love of something, even if it's something that the audience doesn't know that they should love yet. And it's been exhausting. That's a lot of work, and it's very, very helpful to have people. James and I work together. Emma's helping out with the edit to a huge amount. I now have Caleb Martin on some of my recent videos has done some music for me. So having other people helping out certainly is good. And we'll see where the process goes in 2026.
How much do you theme your outfits for videos?
Yeah, so sometimes it's something we think about way in advance. Sometimes it's sort of last minute, like, what do I wear for this one? So it used to be that it was just the sailor costume every time. Now, if there's a reason, if something is appropriate for me to wear, sometimes it's very clear. Like for the Wizard of Oz video, well, I got to wear something green. For the holiday video, I wound up sitting there in like a Christmassy tank top with the turtleneck and a winter coat, which was deranged. And bizarrely, we were like, I'm going to get so many comments like, what are you wearing? Nobody commented on what I'm wearing on that one, which surprised me. So anyway,
You got a lot of comments on the Gomer Pyle outfit.
Yes. So the Gomer Pyle outfit where I'm in like just overalls with my tits out, that got a lot of comments. Not all of them very nice. But look, whatever. As long as people leave in comments, I'm happy. So playing dress up is part of the fun.
Also, would you ever do a collab with Be Kind Rewind? I think you and her could make such an interesting, well-researched video about some queer movie or show or something. Just something to think about. Love your stuff. Happy Christmas.
Yeah, I did collab with Be Kind Rewind a while back with Rita Moreno when West Side Story was coming out. So there was like a kind of a group YouTuber project that she spearheaded. So I participated in that, and then I've been on her podcast that she co-hosts. So yeah, absolutely. I would definitely be down to exploring more opportunities.
Do you have a reading list for your videos? For example, what books you have read in the process of making the video or would recommend reading?
Yeah. So usually, I have like the source info at the bottom of the screen. And sometimes people will ask, like, could you just make a list of everything that you read? And at some point, maybe I will get around to it. It would be a bit of work to bring it all together into an actual coherent list. Because often there's so much. And sometimes there's a lot that I don't even wind up using. So, for a video like the Brokeback Mountain video, for example, there's probably like a good 40 different sources that went into the making, at least, of that video. or like the what's the one that the Bob Fosse one, the one that I did about Cabaret. So I don't know. Maybe that's a project that I can tackle in the coming year, going through the videos and being like, what are the books that would be good to look at if you want more of this? And I'll just put it in the description. So, but for now, the best way to find that is just to like watch the video and look for like source at the bottom of the screen.
While going through the backlog of bonus videos, I noticed a number of graphic novels and comic book collections on bookshelves in the background. What are some of your favorite comics?
Yes. So Scott Pilgrim has, I've got a soft space in my heart for that. Is that a saying? So I love Scott Pilgrim. And gosh, what else? Andrew Wheeler is a Canadian comic writer who I love his work. He's got a book called Black Flamingo that is like gay James Bond. That is so much fun. My friends, of course, Josh Trujillo and Anthony Oliveira, like their work, highly recommended. I love everything that they do. In terms of like other, like I like the Alan Moore stuff. Like I like Watchmen a lot. There is a book that he did called, it's not Halo Jones. Maybe it is Halo Jones. Hold on. There's a book called Halo Jones. And it's not one of Alan Moore's better remembered works. And I think he had ideas for it that he wasn't able to execute on because of like stupid corporate ownership stuff. But I love the Ballad of Halo Jones. It is a story about it's a sci-fi story about this woman who finds herself in a position of heroism, and she's very matter of fact about like, she has this moment where she's like, anybody could have done it. Like she's like downplaying like everything that she's accomplished. And she's like, anybody could have done it. And I love that as an ethos. I love that as a motivating philosophy that anybody can be a hero. And so those are some of my favorites.
I've been listening to a lot of your Sewers of Paris podcasts. If this isn't an inappropriate question, have you ever interviewed someone that you regretted interviewing afterward, either because they didn't interview well or took the conversation to a place you really didn't want to go?
Yes. So I do have one interview that I just have never published. And it is because the person that I was speaking to, without saying too much about them, this is somebody who was doing some art and illustration for marketing stuff that was somewhat high profile in the 80s and 90s. And they got so gossipy in the interview and were talking about who was sleeping with who. And they were like naming rather famous still living people, still working, still living people, and telling some saucy stories about who was hooking up and who was doing drugs. And I'm like, okay, I cannot put this out without either fact checking for a million years or bleeping everything. And so I don't know, maybe I'll put it in my will that like after I'm dead and I can't be sued, then we can release it. So that's the one that like strictly from like I don't want to get sued. And also like these accusations, like, I don't know, maybe this person is just making stuff up and but they're naming so many people. I just can't put it out. So anyway, that's the one that I've held back.
Is this your full-time job?
So yeah, this is the full-time gig. And that was not always the case until recently. Even as recently, I want to say is like 2022, 2023, I was waking up at 5 to do some writing work for a client from like 5 to 9. And then from 9 to like 4 or 5 in the afternoon, I was writing for another client. And then after that, that's when I could get down to work on making YouTube videos and podcasts. And so there was a big split between the work that I was doing for someone else and the work that I'm doing here for you. So it's very recent that now Patreon has made it possible for me to just make this the full-time thing and to focus on this. So all the folks who support my work and are members over on Patreon, I'm very grateful that you've allowed me to really devote my time to making everything that I make here. That this is my office, that talking to you is my office, makes me so happy.
I'd love a video about how you started. I know what your influences are, and I adore hearing about how they shaped and motivated you. I'm so interested in the journey you've taken. I ask for more, please, sir.
Yeah. Ooh, I'm very excited to talk more about this. So actually coming up in 2026, August of 2026 is going to be the 20th anniversary, 20 years since my first YouTube upload. So what we're thinking is I may do a video like exploring this and telling the story in more detail for that. That may be how we celebrate the 20-year anniversary, talking about like how the heck did I get here? Like, what am I doing and how did I get to this point? So stay tuned for that.
A similar question, which may be covered if you're going to do a retrospective video in the future. How did you end up getting into queer media history?
Wow, how did I wind up getting into queer media history? So part of that is just that I was working in the industry. I was working in the entertainment industry. And I was also doing activism. And, I've told this story before, is that I started to see how much entertainment is political and politics relies on entertainment. And just, the crossover seemed to make a lot of sense for me. One of the big moments was when I did a video about the Golden Girls. This is maybe, 10-ish years ago. I did a video about the Golden Girls that people seem to like. I really like making it. And I'm like, I may be onto something here. But that's kind of how I got into it. Just queer media has always been sort of important to me. I'm thinking back to when I moved to San Francisco and I was volunteering for Frameline, which is the gay film festival. Just wanting to soak myself in that has always been a thing for me. And I'm sure I'll talk about that lots more in the future.
What is one of your favorite videos that you made, and what do you think is one of your best moments?
So, I probably will have a different answer for this based on just like the mood at the moment when you ask me, but one of my favorite videos was Rope, talking about Alfred Hitchcock and especially the behind-the-scenes love affair that was going on between the writer and the star of that film. Like, I just found that a really interesting and compelling story to unearth. So I really enjoyed doing that video, and also just like how technically interesting Rope is. So I really like that video. And in terms of like a best moment, I think one moment that really made me happy was, this was years ago. I did a video about the Golden Girls where I got to interview one of the writers on the. It was Jeff Duteel, who had written that episode and a few other episodes of other shows. And I think that was one of the first times that I really brought in somebody who was there, who worked on it, whose name is on the screen. And there was sort of a light bulb moment for me after that where I'm like, these people are still out there. They're alive. They're proud of their work. They did amazing work, and I want to learn more about it. And getting to talk to Jeff Duteel for that Golden Girls episode, I think that both opened a door for what was possible for me with my videos, and also I think that was really motivating when it came to writing my book, when it came to writing Hi Honey, I'm Homo. I really wanted to talk to the folks who were there for that book.
What was your favorite project that you've worked on this last year?
Oh gosh, my favorite. Don't make me choose, because I really have enjoyed everything that I've made this past year. It has been so much fun to experience, to explore, and bring it to you. So gosh, what was my favorite? I would say like the Frankenstein video. I think was a lot of fun. Just spending time with like James Whale and discovering stuff about him and like going deep on James Whale and Frankensteins in general. That was a lot of, monsters are fun. So I really liked doing that. But outside of the YouTube channel, there are a couple other things that I've worked on that I just have not spoken about here. One is here in Seattle, we have had a string of not great politicians. And so there was a mayoral race this year. Katie Wilson was running. She was not a household name. She was like the long shot candidate. It was like, who? And then she just kept getting more and more steam. She like was standing up for like queer people. She's talking about how like she wants to make Seattle the safest place for trans people, like where they can still access gender affirming care. She wanted to talk about like building more housing, especially like she called out making homes more accessible because people will want to move to Seattle because it's such a safe place for queer people. So I just loved everything that Katie was doing with her campaign. So I started volunteering and I shot a video for her campaign. I helped out with the communications stuff for the campaign, was really out there and like pushing hard for this like long shot at first candidate. And then she won. And so I'm very, very proud of that. So we're going to have an amazing new mayor starting in just a few days in Seattle. And I take all the credit for that. So the Katie stuff. And also, this is another thing I don't talk about on my channel because why would I? But my plants have been doing real well this year, and it makes me very happy to look over at my monsteras and see like you were kind of sick at the start of the year, and now you're doing great. So I feel very proud about my plants.
What's one thing you would like to do in your career that you haven't had the chance to do yet?
I want to be careful here because I was just listening to a really good Science Versus podcast episode about manifestation and about like basically debunking the idea that if you just act like you already have it and, you talk a lot about like the thing that you want, then it'll magically come true. And actually, what science has found is that the more you imagine, the more you fantasize about reaching your goals, the more you talk about doing something you haven't done yet, the less likely you are to actually try to do it. So I don't want to talk too much about my dreams for the future. But that having been said, I spend a lot of time, in fact, almost all of my time, looking at media that people have created, and I love that. I love digging deep on the stuff that has been made and celebrating the amazing works that humans have made with their hands. And I want to do a little bit more of that myself. I want to be more creative. I want to have more creative projects in the years to come. So that's something that is percolating to the top of my priorities at the moment.
Someone hands you a giant budget to create your own fictional TV series. What is it about and who is it starring?
Ooh, this is such a good question. Okay, so it is and I'm just going to answer the first thing that's on my mind. I would love to make, because here's the thing. Star Trek has always been so important to me my entire life. I would like to make not a Star Trek, but something Star Trek-ish. I would like to make a science fiction series that is super queer. And I mean, that really just is Star Trek right now. But I want to make a Star Trek series that is super queer and scrappy. I think one of the things about Star Trek that I don't love about modern Star Trek is everything looks so expensive. Everything looks well made, and everybody's uniforms are crisp and clean. And I want to make something that's a little bit more, I guess what I'm talking about here is sort of Firefly. I want to make something that sits in the middle of Star Trek and Firefly and is also very, very gay. Who would it star? So basically, everyone who has played Mary Todd Lincoln in Oh Mary is my favorite actor, actress, or acting person. So basically, it would star whoever. This is how I would cast it. It is just going to star completely whoever has been in Oh Mary. They are invited to be on the show. That's how I cast anything now.
Will Queens of Adventure be coming back? I know since some of the cast has gone on to Drag Race fame that it could be harder to get people together for a campaign, but it was such a comfort listen for me over the years.
Well, I appreciate that. Yeah, so Queens of Adventure was a project we were doing a few years ago, pre-pandemic actually, where we were playing Dungeons & Dragons with drag queens. And I appreciate that you liked it. It was a lot of fun. I mean, in particular, because maybe you can tell, I'm interested in delving a little more deeply on science fiction and fantasy and genre fiction, that kind of stuff. And so it's certainly something that's on my mind. And as you mentioned, as this question asker mentioned, a lot of the folks that we worked with, I'm just really proud to have had an opportunity to play Dungeons & Dragons with. In particular, we did a lot of work with Bosco and Irene, who have been so much fun to watch together on Drag Race. We did a special episode with Ben de la Creme, which was really fun. Utica and Rock'em Sakura, we've done, episodes with them. So a lot of the folks who you've seen on Drag Race have gone on these wild, epic fantasy adventures. And I think this is a very fun genre, science fiction fantasy, stuff that is speculative or imaginative fiction. It is a great place to explore our real lives. Science fiction, fantasy are really about what's happening in our lives right now, just told through a very imaginative metaphor. And I really am interested in the ways that queer life can be explored in genres where you might not expect it. So this is a very long way of me saying thank you for your patience. Very long way of me saying that Queens of Adventure, the way that you knew it, probably not going to come back, but it is something that I am very interested in exploring through those genres and through storytelling.
As someone who loves your books as well as your vids, I'd like to know if you have any topics you're writing about and possibly looking to share with your fans. Do you have any more books in the works?
Yes, actually, as we were recording this, there's just a folder just off screen where I've got different book ideas. So there is stuff that I am exploring and researching and digging through, and the answer is maybe. And also, refer back to my previous answer about how I don't want to say too much about the stuff that I'm imagining, because I think the more you talk about what you plan to do, the less you actually do the thing that you're planning. So yes.
Tell us a random fact about you that you would be excited to share but just haven't had the opportunity.
You could probably tell this if you've been following me on social media, but I fucking love dogs. And so there's never a reason for me to talk about this in my videos. But something that I've been doing for the last year or so is there's a big park outside our house, just a few blocks away, where people go in the afternoon and they just bring their dogs to run around. And so I don't have a dog. The building that we're in doesn't allow pets. And also our place is way too cramped and crowded for us to have a dog here safely. But I'll just go out to the park, hang out with the dogs. I know the dogs' names, and I barely know the owners' names. I'm just like, the people are, they'll see me coming, they'll be like, hey, Matt, how are you? And I'm like, hey, good to see you. Anyway. And like, I look down at the dogs, and those are the ones who I'm spending time with. So anyway, I love dogs. Somebody asked me a while ago, like, if the internet went away and you couldn't make things for the internet anymore, like, what job would you want to do? And I was like, oh, something creative. And I'm talking about like the creative stuff that I was doing. And I'm like, or maybe I would just be a dog walker, which I actually do. Like, one of my little things that I just do for my friends is I walk my friends' dogs all the time, and I love it.
What's your opinion of Seattle as well as Washington State?
Oh boy, we are so lucky to be in Seattle. I love Seattle so much. It is one of my favorite cities in the country. In fact, James and I lived in San Francisco for a long time. I love so much about San Francisco, but the San Francisco that I loved, I don't think exists anymore. This was San Francisco like 2002 to 2010 or 11 or so, before the bubble that is currently bouncing along. So I love a city that is super gay, where you could just walk everywhere, where the politics is pretty good. There's a lot of green space, and where it's rainy all the time. I love rain. So Seattle's got it all, folks. I love it.
Would love to see a behind-the-scenes research vlog of where you go in Seattle.
Ooh, a research. Well, that's interesting. Like, the research that I do in person, I don't do a ton of like actually going to archives physically, because most of what I need is digitized. However, especially in Seattle, there's not a lot of like media archives in Seattle that I would go to. I do go to the library a bunch. So maybe like once a week, I'd go down to the library, to pick something up. That's not very exciting. Seattle does have a great public library, though. The downtown public library is gorgeous. And then I also sometimes, not in Seattle, but I will go to the Margaret Herrick Library in LA, or the New York Public Library has a great performing arts archive where, you have to make appointments in advance and all that stuff. But the great performing arts archive there where I can dig through stuff. So the thing is like actually watching someone do research is so boring. Like, the actual research is so incredibly dull to watch. It's exciting to do, but so much of it is just like looking at a piece of paper, flipping it over, looking at what's behind it. Like, it's just looking at stuff. So the actual doing of that is not very exciting. However, if you're asking me to do just like a tour of Seattle, I would love to show off my city. I'd love to just show you around the city. I think that would be super fun. In fact, there is a lot of really good, exciting queer stuff happening in the city. There are venues, there are shops, there are creators that I would really like to do some videos on. Now, that having been said, that's probably not what folks are expecting to see on my main channel, where I'm talking about, like the X-Men and Star Trek. So if I did something like that, it might be a Patreon video. It might be something on the bonus Matt Baum channel. I haven't really decided, but there are some very cool stores. There are some very cool artists that I want to talk to. I just went to see Scott Shoemaker's War on Christmas, which I absolutely loved. Theaters like Theater Off Jackson, places that I would love to show you, people who are doing amazing work. And I'm just not sure where that would live yet, but surely there is a place where it should live.
What's your opinion on salt and vinegar chips?
Love them, but you got to be careful. I used to work, this is many years ago, my job right out of college was I was an intern, and then I was working in post-production at the Jim Henson Studios on La Brea in Hollywood. I was working at the Jim Henson Company on the lot, which was a dream come true. And I realized a few days in that I was bringing the smelliest lunches to this office. And I was like, oh God, what people must think of me. So 100% there was salt and vinegar chips. There was like lox. I was having these lox bagels, and I was like, oh, this is just like stinking up the office with fish. And maybe that's great for New Zealand, but not for me. So before I could become known as the fish guy, I stopped doing that. Anyway, what was the question?
I think you covered it. Are you single? And if not, is there a wait list?
Oh, that's very sweet. No, James and I are celebrating a milestone anniversary next year, and I won't let you know which one, but it's a good one.
Will we hear of an engagement or wedding, and will we ever see James?
Do I hear wedding bells? No? Well, then I'm having a stroke. So James and I actually talk about this in my book, In Defining Marriage. I talk about like James and my negotiation's the wrong word, our discussion around like marriage and is it right for us? And two answers to that. One is this is an area where like I don't think our thinking has really changed. This is a relationship that we have entirely chosen our terms for, and I really value that. It is not something that is attached to a piece of paper that somebody else has issued. That having been said, there are certain legal benefits that we might want to pursue at some point, especially as we're getting into our twilight years. We're not there yet, but it'll happen at some point. Fingers crossed. Oh, and also the question, will we ever see James? James?
I am perceivable.
I can confirm that. Sure. James is perceivable. That is the most metaphysical way you could have answered that. And sort of biblical? Anyway, yeah, sure. Be not afraid.
We'll try not to ask a question about your arms and or thighs.
Oh, look, ask away. Thank you for noticing that in the last year, I have tried to pay a little bit more attention to my physical health as I'm doing like kind of exhausting work on some of the videos. My body has, as I'm in my 40s, and there have been times when my back has really let me know that I'm not as young as I used to be. So I've been going to the gym more, and that's been good for my body overall. And I'm glad that you like what you see on camera. I once had a dream. This is maybe like 2 years ago. I had a dream where I'd just been feeling very self-conscious about how I come off on camera, like how I'm perceived on camera. And, kind of like acknowledging the little voice in my head that it's always been there, and it's always pressured me to be the best little boy. A lot of queer people have this. Got to be the best. And so I had a dream that I think it was my therapist said to me something like, you could be a himbo if you weren't so ugly. And like, that was just my voice. That was just my inner little man talking to me in my head in my dream. And I was like, ooh, that's some baggage that I gotta let go of and just be happy with who I am and how I look. And you know what, I am. So yeah, that's a nice way to feel.
If you could live outside the country, where would you go?
Oh my goodness. I love this question. Gosh, there are so many places. So I haven't been outside of the country in a while. I went to Toronto very briefly. Here's the thing. I love everywhere. So I went to Toronto briefly as part of doing some book stuff. Did an event there with the wonderful Anthony Oliveira at the Toronto Public Library, which is magnificent. Go to the Toronto Public Library if you can. Gorgeous. So I love Toronto. I haven't been to Vancouver yet. I would love to go to Vancouver because it's very wet. And, I love a rainy city and I love sewer cities. And there's a lot of drainage happening in that city, which is very exciting to me. I also, a couple years ago, this is 2017, I spent a lot of time in Europe because the Advocate sent me over to photograph different prides over the summer. So very fortunately, it was like a dream gig. I was based in Amsterdam and would take the train to photograph different prides over the summer. And so Amsterdam's amazing. There's an incredible queer culture there. The pride in Amsterdam is gorgeous too, with like the floats, like these rainbow floats on, just cruising down the canals and these beautiful gay boats cruising by. Reykjavik is gorgeous. I love Reykjavik's pride because like 90% of the country goes to pride in Iceland. And incredibly, this is like future living. They'll show up. Pride starts at like 11 a.m. They have the parade. They go to the park. There's a few numbers, and then everybody goes home at 2. And like Pride's done, and it's not exhausting. The opposite of that was Paris. I loved Paris Pride. Was really great because everybody just marches along with the parade. So instead of being like, ironically, there are no barricades. So you could just march along with a pride parade. So this is basically my way of saying, like, I'm evaluating cities based on how good I think their prides are. Berlin, amazing. Ich liebe Berlin. It is gorgeous, and the pride was so much fun because it started off sunny, turned into a huge deluge downpour of rain. Everybody got soaked in there, and it turned into a wet T-shirt contest. And I love the Schloss Museum in Berlin, which is this like one of the most important queer archives in the world. So there's a lot of stuff going on in Berlin that I just adore. So if I could live anywhere, don't make me choose. Berlin is way up there at the top of the list.
How do you keep your spirits and hopes up as a gay American man these days?
Oh, boy, yeah. I mean, one of them is just not looking at the news if you don't have to. Like, I think there's this feeling that, like, we got to be informed and we got to know what's happening at every moment. We got to know every outrage that's going on. There is a ceiling to how much you need to know and how much you need to be aware of the horrors. So sometimes it is okay. Like, and I'm not saying like put yourself in a hole and like ignore the world, but when it's getting to be too much, you got to recognize like this is too much. I need a break. So just stepping away sometimes is part of it. And also, a thing that really keeps me going is the history, looking at the past, recognizing there have been some bad times before. And not only have we moved past them and gotten out of them, we have found ways to enjoy ourselves and have a good time doing it. So even when things have been bleak in the past, there have been things to love and enjoy in those bleak times. And sometimes that's creating art. Sometimes that's creating community and being around each other. Sometimes it's like dreaming of what we could have, appreciating the family, the chosen families that we have. So looking at the past and like what has given people joy when things were bleak before and how they found strength to move on and make the world a better place is such a inspiring thing to do, and it really gives me a lot of energy for making more. And in 2026, like I'm really excited for bringing you an exciting future from the past. And to that end, watching the stuff and looking at the past and hearing these stories is super important, and also getting involved. Because, when you look at how people made it through the hard times in the past, part of that was taking action. For example, here in Seattle, when, I saw like, I was exasperated with our political leadership, and I was like, ooh, this person is running for office and she has ideas. She has plans. She wants to do stuff. She's going to put stuff in practice. And I was like, I want to support that. I want to get behind that. So, and I took a little action. I, did what I could. I contributed in the way that I could. I shot some videos. It turns out that's something that I can do. That's something I can contribute. I gave them advice on their YouTube presence. That's something I can do. So taking action, being like, here's what we're going to do, folks. Not just we're going to sit back and try to feel better, but also we're going to go on a march. We're going to join something. We're going to get on a mailing list. We're going to do a phone bank. There's so many ways, so many different ways to contribute and make a difference. And at the end of the day, something that I try to be good about is at the end of the day, like I have a little book where I write down some of the things I got done that day. And whether you write it down physically or not, or you're just like drifting off to sleep and you think like, oh yeah, I did that today. Getting to the end of the day and being like, I did something and I'm in a different place than I was this morning. Oh boy, that is so good for you. It is so nutritious to do something. So that's what I would recommend is look at what people have done before and be inspired and be like, I could do that, and then do it.
That's all we have for questions, Matthew. Thank you so much to everyone on YouTube and on Patreon who sent questions in. I have a question for you, Matthew.
Ooh, yes.
What will be your focus for 2026 on YouTube.com?
Ooh, wow. What will be my focus in 2026 on YouTube.com? It is going to turn into an all dogs channel. No. So there's a bunch of stuff that's on my mind for 2026. And I don't want to say too much because, who knows what might change. Okay, so one of the things that I want to spend a little more of my focus on in 2026 is getting a little bit more personal and talking a little bit more about my connection to stuff, how things make me feel, the stuff that I notice, because, I think that I have been doing this for long enough that there are connections that I sometimes form that may not be obvious. And I would love to do more of my take on what's going on with a particular piece of media. So often my videos are very facts. They're very here's the story and here's what happened and here are the people involved. And I love that. That's not going away. I love telling the stories of interesting, incredible people. But I would also like to get a little bit more personal on my connection to things, because I've actually been involved in the making of a lot of media. I just don't talk about it that much. And also, I've got a lot of opinions that I don't often share. And my videos are generally not opinionated. They're not and here's what I think. So I'd like to just introduce more of myself into my own videos. As long as I'm here, I might as well be a part of them. And also, one other thing that's been on my mind is sort of the spectrum of quality and quantity, and basically spending more time to make things really, really good. That's not to say I think that I'm rushing or putting out bad product, but there are some things that I'm if I had just a little bit more time on the writing or the research or going out and getting an interview or digging something up that nobody's ever seen before, there's some times where I'm I want to spend just a little bit more time to either put the polish on this or discover something. So I'm going to be focusing a little bit more on spending the time to make something even greater. So that's another thing that I'm going to be working on in 2026. And also something that I was talking about a little bit earlier is my interest in, I talk about the people who have made great media, and I'm interested in finding ways that I can be making media myself. So I'm not sure exactly what form that'll take, but it is something that I'm going to be exploring a little bit more in this year. And I thought I was going to answer this really briefly, but apparently not. And I also want to look more internationally this year. So I know that people have been asking me about UK stuff. There is a whole world, literally, of media that I tend to focus on the US. So in the coming year, I would like to broaden my boundaries a little bit more and look abroad for media that I can talk about.
Any final thoughts you'd like to leave us with?
This is going to sound real cheesy, but folks, I really do mean this, that you are partners in everything that I do. It means so much that I'm able to make this media for an audience that wants it and that cares about this stuff as much as I do. So, you are really you're a partner in what I'm making here, both in the viewing that you do, in sharing it with other people and telling them about it, suggesting stuff to me, making me aware of things that I didn't know about. I'm putting these videos out and speaking these stories for folks to experience and enjoy, and it makes me so happy that we are doing it together. So I realize it's very cheesy, like you're my you're part of the family, but you really are. You're part of the magic of telling these stories and making the discovery that we are all, it turns out, very connected through the entertainment that we enjoy. Especially because we're in some tough times right now. Not to sugarcoat anything, we are facing some obstacles that are, especially if you are younger, you may not have experienced things being as bad as they are at this moment. So it's tough. It's tough. Just looking at where the world is and where this country in particular is. So the only way to get through that stuff is together. And, I said in one of my recent videos that changing the world by yourself is hard. And fortunately, we don't have to. We don't have to do anything by ourselves. We can do everything together in community. So there are lots of ways that we can all get through this together. And there are lots of actions that you personally can take, either by being a leader and showing other people how they can make a difference, running for office, creating art, leading an organization, leading a march, whatever, or by contributing, like finding other people who are doing work that you believe in and supporting them and asking them, how can I help what you are doing? Because I think it's good. So whether you're leading, whether you're contributing, whether you're joining up with other people or whatever it is, the fact that there are so many opportunities to take action and make the world better and get ourselves out of this state together, I think is a reason not to be depressed about the state of the world, but to be optimistic about what we're going to accomplish. All right. Thanks once again, folks, for all of your questions. Thanks for being a part of everything that I do. And now, if you'll excuse me, New Year's approaching and my ball's about to drop.